Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today, we're cracking open Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. This book, well, it really shifted how I see, just why we do the things we do. And lucky for us, we've got an expert here to break it all down.
Oh, it's a book that can surprise you, that's for sure. Even if you think, I'm pretty self-aware, Duhigg, he just makes the science, the brain stuff, it's like a story,
Yeah,
keeps you reading.
definitely. Okay, so the core of the book, this habit loop, what's that about and why should we care?
Imagine it's the engine, right? The engine behind every habit. 3 parts. Cue, routine, reward. Cue's the trigger. See a plate of cookies, boom, there's your cue. Routine, that's the action, you grabbing a cookie. And the reward, well, that sugary goodness that makes you want another one, of course.
So a cycle, it just keeps going. But how does it even start? Just doing something over and over.
It's a little more to it, yeah. Duhigg, he talks about craving, uses this example, Julio the monkey. They're doing an experiment. Julio gets blackberry juice, a reward every time he does this task. As he learns, his brain activity, it spikes. But before the juice even comes, anticipation, that's the craving.
So that's what really wires the habit in. And this isn't just about, sweets, right?
No, not at all. Think exercise. First, maybe it's just pushing yourself to go. But then people, they start craving that good feeling, the endorphins, the I did it feeling, makes the routine, the workout worth it. You look forward to it.
So we can use this for our benefit? Can we actually hack our own habits?
You bet. Duhigg calls it the golden rule of habit change. Can't just erase a bad habit, got to redirect it. Cue stays, reward stays, you change the routine.
That's where the willpower battle comes in, I bet.
Oh, willpower is important, sure. But there's more to it. Duhigg, he presents willpower like a muscle. Gets stronger when you work it out. Remember that marshmallow experiment? Kids could eat 1 now, or 2 if they waited. The kids who resisted, they had stronger willpower later in life, too.
But what about when willpower just fails? Like, I know I shouldn't eat the whole chip bag, but sometimes it wins.
That's when understanding keystone habits helps. Think of them like the foundation of a house, yeah. These habits, they affect everything else. Powerful.
Give us an example. Make it real.
Okay, there's this story about Paul O'Neill. He was CEO of Alcoa, big company. Everyone thought he's going to focus on profits, right? Nope. He focused on worker safety. And guess what? Safety improved, but so did communication, efficiency, and yeah, profits went up too.
So one change and everything shifts.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so we've got habit loops, cravings, changing those routines, willpower, keystone habits. What's the main takeaway from the power of habit then? What's it all about?
I'd say it's about understanding that we have power, real power, over our habits. Knowing how they work, it's like a toolbox, right? You can understand yourself better and change the things you want to. We're not just, robots on autopilot.
Taking control, like grabbing the steering wheel.
Right.
So who should read this book then? Why pick up The Power of Habit specifically?
Anyone who's ever felt stuck, struggling with a bad habit, want to just, get yourself better, it's for you. Duhigg, he uses these great stories, and the advice is practical. You can actually use it,
It's not just ideas, you get actual steps to change.
Exactly. Whether you're trying to, quit smoking, eat healthier, get to the gym more, just get things done. The power of habit, it gives you the tools.
How's the book laid out? What are the main parts?
3 main parts. Part 1, the habits of individuals. All about the science of how habits form, how to change your own.
That's where the habit loop stuff is, right?
Yeah. You got it. Then part 2, the habits of successful organizations. How companies like Starbucks, Alcoa, they use habits to, do well. And lastly, part 3, the habits of societies. Duhigg looks at how habits affect whole movements, even cultural stuff, how we do things as a group.
Covers a lot of ground. Before we go chapter by chapter, what are some of the big ideas, the arguments that Duhigg makes?
One of the biggest. Habits, they're not destiny. We can change them, but you got to understand them first.
Habit loop, here we come again.
Exactly. And then there's cravings. They're not the enemy. They're actually super important for habits to stick, good or bad.
They're the fuel, yeah.
Yep. And then he introduces this idea, keystone habits. Those are the ones that, they change everything else, have a ripple effect.
Like the CEO, safety first, and it all got better.
Exactly. And then there's willpower. Duhigg says it's like a muscle. Got to practice, make it stronger.
Marshmallow kids. Yeah.
Right. And he says belief is a big deal, too. If you don't believe you can change, well, you probably won't.
And he talks about how whole organizations, even movements, they use habits for good or bad.
Yeah, think about the King's Crossfire or the bus boycott. Big examples.
Powerful stuff. Okay, before we get to those chapters, any quotes, any lines in the book that just hit you hard?
Oh, so many. One that I always think about is champions don't do extraordinary things. They do ordinary things, but they do them without thinking too fast for the other team to react. They follow the habits they've learned.
That's a good one. Really shows how important it is to like make good habits automatic.
And this one really hit me. The golden rule of habit change. You can't extinguish a bad habit, you can only change it.
It's like you don't fight the urge, you just like plant it somewhere else, something good.
And lastly, this one always makes me think. Habits are the invisible architecture of everyday life.
Wow. Right, they really are shaping what we do, what we think, who we become.
Amazing how something so, well, every day can have that much power.
Well, I'm hooked. Let's get into those first few chapters, see how Duhigg brings all this to life.
All right.
Okay, we've got the basics. Let's get into the book. Chapter 1, we meet Lisa Allen. She totally changed her life, and it started with habits. What's her story?
Lisa, she was stuck, overweight, smoking, not happy. Then she goes to Egypt and bam, something clicks. Comes back, quits smoking, starts running, new job, even goes back to school. Complete 180.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like she became a different person. But how does that connect back to the habit loop thing?
Duhigg says it's what he calls a keystone habit. For Lisa, it was running. That one good habit, it set off all these other changes, like a chain reaction.
The domino effect. One habit knocks down another, and boom, you've got this whole new, I don't know, structure.
Exactly. The trick is finding those keystone habits, the ones that can reshape everything.
Makes sense. Chapter 2. Now we're in the marketing world. Febreze. I remember this. It's kind of funny. Didn't people not like it at first?
Oh yeah, classic example of companies trying to use habits, but it backfired. Febreze, they said it'd eliminate odors, but it wasn't selling. Why? People with constant bad smells, pets and stuff, they got nose blind. They don't even know how bad it was. No cue to use Febreze.
So they had a good product, but nobody needed it, basically. How'd they fix that?
Had to make a new habit loop. They made Febreze part of cleaning. Clean the house, then you spray for that fresh scent, that finishing touch.
So you're already feeling good because you cleaned, and now they connect that to the Febreze smell. Clever. Almost like they're hijacking a habit you already have.
You got it. That's a big takeaway from this chapter. Companies, they do well when they tie their product to something you already do and a good feeling you get.
Good marketing lesson right there. Chapter 3, now it gets different. Eugene Pauly, this guy who lost his memory but could still do certain habits. What's that about?
Eugene's story, it's wild, shows us that habits, they're stored in a different part of the brain than, our memories. He couldn't remember breakfast, didn't recognize his kids, but he could walk around his neighborhood, find his way home, no problem.
So memory's gone, but habit's still there. Like there's a habit brain running in the background.
Exactly. Shows you how deeply habits get in there. And it backs up that golden rule. Can't just erase a bad habit. Got to replace it with a new routine.
Redirect, don't fight. Okay, Chapter 4, back to business. Paul O'Neill and Alcoa. We mentioned him, but let's dig into how he used worker safety as a keystone habit.
O'Neill, he was a different kind of CEO. Didn't care about profits first, no. He said worker safety, that's top priority. He figured if everyone's focused on safety, they got to think different about the whole, how they make stuff.
And people push back.
Big time. Investors, they were like, what is this guy doing? Employees were confused. But O'Neill, he stuck to it. Saw safety as the key, the thing that unlocked all these good changes.
And he was right. Safety got better, but so did how they talked to each other, how they worked, and yeah, more money in the end. Keystone habits, man, they work. Chapter 5 now, Starbucks. How they teach their employees to, handle stress. What's the habit connection there?
Starbucks realized their baristas, they deal with a lot, right? Demanding customers, complicated orders, it's stressful. They needed them to stay, cool under pressure. So they trained them to make willpower a habit.
So not just resisting that extra shot of syrup, but having a system to handle stress.
Exactly. They gave him techniques like breathing, acknowledging the customer's frustration, offering solutions, do it over and over. It becomes habit automatic.
So instead of freaking out, they have this pre-programmed response, keeps them in control. Mental toolkit, that's smart. But not all habits are good, right? Chapter 6, the King's Cross Station fire, and how organizational habits played a role. A bad role.
Yeah, that chapter's a tough one. It's like a reminder that habits, especially in big groups, they can get so strong they actually stop progress, even cause, disasters.
So many things went wrong in that fire. How did habits make it worse?
There were chances to stop the fire, but they missed them. And part of it was, they were so used to doing things a certain way, nobody was really in charge of passenger safety,
That's just awful.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you think, We got to keep checking our habits. Are they still working or are they hurting us? Especially in groups.
Yep. Sometimes it takes something bad, a crisis, to shake us up, make us look at those habits again, alone or as a group.
Okay. Chapter 7, back to data and marketing, Target, and how they kind of creepily predict what customers will do. We talked about the pregnant teenager thing, but how do they do it? What's their secret?
Data, that's their secret weapon.
Hmm.
They analyze tons of data looking for patterns that match up with big life changes, getting married, having a baby, moving, stuff like that.
So you buy, I don't know, unscented lotion or certain vitamins, and they know what's up. It's like they're reading minds.
It is kind of freaky. Yeah. Yeah. But it's also really advanced. By knowing those patterns, Target can figure out what's going to happen in your life and then send you ads for exactly what you'll need.
But that brings up ethical
Yeah.
questions, right?
Yeah.
Where's the line between knowing your customers and spying on them? How much is too much?
That's the debate still going on. And we should all be thinking about it, as shoppers.
For sure. Now, Chapter 8, this is about how habits and who you know, your network, plays a part in big movements.
Yeah.
The Montgomery bus boycott's the example. How did habits help that movement succeed?
Rosa Parks, her action, it started the boycott. But what kept it going, what made it work, was the community, their habits, their connections. Duhigg, he talks about strong ties, close people, and weak ties, acquaintances, and how they all spread the word, kept people boycotting.
So not just willpower, but people working together, same goal, willing to change how they did things day to day.
Right. And the book talks about Dr. King, his message of nonviolence, that shaped the movement's habits too. It made a culture of peaceful protest, and that's what got more people on board, made the change last.
Habits used for good. That's
Yeah.
powerful. And lastly, Chapter 9, back to the idea of personal responsibility. We mentioned Brian Thomas, Angie Bachman, saying their habits made them do things they weren't in control.
Tough topic, right? We know habits are strong, they can make us act without thinking, but we also gotta, I don't know, manage those habits, especially the ones that hurt us or hurt others.
Where's the line then? Habits versus free will choosing.
The big question. Duhigg wrestles with it throughout the book. What he says in the end is we gotta own our habits once we know about them.
So being aware is step one. If you understand how your habits work, then you can choose, right? Keep them, change them, build new ones. It's hopeful in a way.
It is. People like that message because it means we're not stuck with who we were. We can change, become who we want to be.
And on that note, shaping who we are, let's go to the last chapter. What does Duhigg say about believing you can change and making it stick? We've been through a lot, the habit loop, how those keystone habits work, even the kind of scary side of companies using habits. But Chapter 10 now, the power of belief, why habit change is possible. Duhigg gets into faith, community, big stuff, changing your life.
This chapter, it ties everything together, the idea that believing, whether it's in God or in the people around you or even just in yourself, that belief is what lets you change for good.
We've seen it in the book, right?
Yeah.
Like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Not just changing what you do, but believing you can have a whole new life. But is that just, positive thinking? Or is there more to it?
Duhigg, he goes deeper than that. He talks about studies, people who really believe they can change. They actually do better at breaking bad habits, building good ones. Seems like belief, it actually does something in the brain.
So it's not just wishing. It gets your brain ready to change. What about community? How does that fit in?
He uses Saddleback Church as an example. It's this huge church, but they're big on small groups. Duhigg says those groups, they create this feeling of belonging, of people watching out for you, and that helps with habits big time.
Like a support system, built in, cheering you on, keeping you going.
Yeah, exactly. You've got these shared beliefs, things you do together, people who get it, makes it easier to stick with the new habits.
Okay, so we've covered tons of stuff. If you had to boil down the book, what's the main message? What's it really saying?
The biggest thing for me from The Power of Habit is we're not stuck with our habits. We can understand them, change them, and make the life we want.
We have the power. It's not just happening to us. So listeners out there ready to start changing things, what are the big takeaways to remember?
All right, here's your cheat sheet. Habits are powerful, but they can change. The habit loop. Cue, routine, reward. Gotta know that. Cravings, they're the fuel. Gotta work with them. Keystone habits, those are the ones that make everything else better. Willpower, train it like a muscle. And belief, you gotta believe you can do it. Oh, and community. Find your people. They'll help you stick with it.
Awesome, thanks. Before we go, those quotes, the lines that really stuck with you, what were some of them?
One that always gets me is, Habits are the invisible architecture of everyday life. Simple, but it really shows how much habits are like the foundation of everything.
Building blocks of our lives, yeah.
Another one, champions don't do extraordinary things. They do ordinary things, but they do them without thinking too fast for the other team to react. They follow the habits they've learned. It's like being great isn't magic. It's about doing the right things consistently until they're just, who you are.
Mastering the basics, making good actions automatic.
And then this one, it's the heart of the book. The golden rule of habit change. You can't extinguish a bad habit. You can only change it.
Accepting it, but pointing it in a new direction.
Yep. Change takes time. Gotta find what works for you.
So anyone feeling stuck, the power of habit gives you a way out, a way forward.
It does. Changes how you see yourself, what you can do.
Well, that's a lot for our listeners to think about. Any last bits of wisdom before we wrap up?
Just remember, you're not stuck in the past. You can make your own future, one habit at a time.
Great way to end it. Big thanks to our expert for this awesome deep dive into the power of habit. Hope you learned something and that you're feeling, ready to take charge of your own habits.
It's been fun. Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.